crackdown in and around Tiananmen Square in 1989 came to be symbolized by this iconic image of one man blocking a tank advance. For weeks, students had occupied the space demanding economic and political reforms, and eventually, officials had had enough. They declared martial law and the military moved in. Beginning in the early hours of June 4th, soldiers fired on civilians. Estimates range from a few hundred to several thousand people killed. The movement was successfully suppressed.
Let's say China. China, China, China, China, China, China, China, China.
Labeling COVID-19 a foreign virus.
A foreign virus.
Foreign virus?
As a, quote, foreign virus. It's going to come across to a lot of Americans as smacking of xenophobia.
They're looking for someone to blame.
Take out China. China.
Demonstrations exploded that night.
Amid all the evacuations from Afghanistan, one country is holding off. China is urging its citizens to remain indoors.
China.
Beginning in the early hours of June 4th, soldiers fired on civilians. Estimates range from a few hundred to several thousand people killed. The movement was successfully suppressed.
What's up, everybody? Micah with Micah's Mix. You already know me because you're here. And yeah, as you clicked on the video, you know I'm ranting about China tonight, and I have this whole new setup to make me look official that doesn't really do the thing, but you know, it's fun, so fuck it. We're having a beer. We're going old school newscaster where they fucking smoke in the studio. And we're talking about China. I got a lot to cover with this fucking shit. There is a poll in the chat right now if y'all want to vote on that. Apparently, I am going to be banned in China for this, which, I mean, that's kind of the point. There's a lot of shit that's been going on in China for a very long time. Some of it's covered by the media, some of it's not. Some of it's banned by the media, some of it's not. And so we got a lot that we're going to cover tonight. We're going to start with the Uighurs. We're going to talk about their forced labor. We're going to talk about the cancel culture, quote unquote, cancel culture that is China. We're going to talk about the censorship that is China. And we're going to talk about what we can do. And at the end, we'll probably talk some COVID, where I can really just kind of let shit just boil over. It's kind of the point. Y'all enjoy this, y'all enjoy me ranting, so that's what we're rocking here. So let's actually go ahead and start out with the Uighurs. Now, if you don't know who the Uighurs represent a Muslim population in China. They are in the northwestern Xinjiang province, if I'm not mistaken. It's basically like, you can't see my hand, but it's the corner of where the star is on the China map there. That's roughly where Xinjiang is. In my best Donald Trump voice, China. What's up, Phil? Good to see you. Moose Scout says, "Well, you're becoming CNN." Not really. No, I say a lot. I say fuck a hell of a lot more. So you know, we'll see if this actually stays monetized. I have no idea. Fuck it. Apparently, y'all like me ranting, so this is what we have. So with the Uighurs, for those that don't know who the Uighurs are, they are, like I mentioned, a Muslim population in the northwestern portion of China. since 2014, so 5 years ago, whenever China started their war on terror, there's a lot to be said there. Their version of the war on terror was quite literally to put these Muslims in concentration camps. They started with a bill called the Strike Hard Against Terrorism Act. Or I guess it's their law. It's not really an act. It's not like they really have a council that votes on these things. I mean, they do, but not really. It's more ceremonial than it is anything else, because Xi Jinping, fucking Winnie the Pooh looking motherfucker. There's my one. That's probably gonna get me banned. He has such a stranglehold on that country that it doesn't fucking matter what the council votes. They eliminated his term limits, so he gets to serve until he fucking dies. It's just, great. The CCP, yes. Yes, Ruby, it is the CCP, Chinese. Round them up and put them on trains, fuck China. Well, that's kind of what China's doing to these Muslims, honestly. So, since 2014, they did that Strike Hard Against Terrorism Act, which is basically the Patriot Act on steroids, and then some, because it put out this 75 behavioral indicators that would determine terrorism, right? Well, in the first week, it flagged 24,000 people for suspicious activity, and 15,000 of those people were sent to, I gotta put down my cigarette for this one, re-education camps. Re-education. Now, what are these behaviors? What is it that would actually cause you to get flagged? Well, I'm doing 2 of them. Smoking. And drinking. Both of those events would cause you to get flagged. Another event is buying barbells or dumbbells. For some reason, you want to work out, and if you purchase dumbbells, that flags you to be a possible terrorist. There's so many ridiculous things that this thing had that I couldn't even list them all. It was absolutely nuts, but those were 2 of the funniest ones that I found. Some of the other ones that obviously would apply to the Muslim culture include fasting, praying, growing a beard, wearing a hijab. A lot of these things actually did immediately flag you as a terrorist. Now, I actually do have a video from John Oliver as to why they actually wanted to do this. So let's get that going. Yes, the Mill of Champion, Ruby. That's exactly what this is.
Some people, before they commit murder, already show they are capable of it. Should we wait for them to commit a crime or prevent it from happening?
Okay.
Should we wait for them to prevent a crime, or should we wait for them to commit a crime to prevent it happening? I'm pretty sure that's the entire crux of the Minority Report. Which, if you haven't seen that movie, it's actually a good movie. I actually did enjoy that movie. But that's the entire idea behind the Minority Report. They're trying to prevent crimes before they ever even happen. And that doesn't work out real well. To the point that since that law went into effect, and the last numbers that we have are from 2019, over 1 million people have been placed in these re-education camps. With their crimes being growing a beard, fasting, or applying for a passport. Just applying for a passport and being Muslim is enough to fuck you over, according to China. We actually have, I have this video. This is a lady who actually escaped China. Both her and her husband were able to get passports, and she was pregnant at the time. She is a Muslim woman. She was pregnant at the time, and so but their kids, she had like 4 other kids. Their kids didn't get the passports, just them 2. And so she was afraid that, for some reasons we'll get into here in a minute, that pregnancy will end up being terminated. And so she fled the country with her husband. And her husband, once he got them settled, went back to China. So let's listen to this.
Noor was 7 months pregnant when she left Xinjiang with her husband and 2-year-old son, Mohammed.
We applied for the passports for my children, my family, Mohammed, my husband, and my passport all came through first. They didn't issue any for the other 5 children. I was worried about whether or not my unborn daughter would be born alive or die at the hands of the Chinese. So I left my children and came here.
What was your plan for being reunited with your family when you left Xinjiang?
My husband returned to Xinjiang with the plan to bring the rest of our children here as soon as their passports came in. I came here thinking that I would see my children within 50, at most 15 to 20 days. But in reality, that was not the case. That's one of her kids.
Kelvino's husband was detained after he returned to Xinjiang. He's now serving a 10-year sentence for traveling overseas and suspected terrorism, leaving 5 of her young children without their parents. What do you think happened to your kids?
But after I saw one of the videos of my daughter taken at a children's education hospital in Hotan, I learned that they had taken my children to different cities. So this right here is her daughter. This girl right here. One of her kids. That's her daughter right there. So this Vice video, I highly recommend you actually go watch it. If you're actually wanting to learn about the Uighurs, this Vice video is probably one of the best videos I've ever seen. They actually go to Xinjiang multiple times. And like the encounters that they have are scary as fuck. They go in undercover as just travel bloggers. But y'all should definitely check out this video. It's called China's Vanishing Muslims, Undercover in the Most Dystopian Place in the World. Ridiculous. It's a 31-minute long video, but y'all should totally watch this. There's so much in this. We actually have another video here in a minute that talks about this. It's nuts what these people are having to go through. It's just absolutely nuts. So her husband was arrested and he's serving a 10-year sentence for terroristic threat, which is the law that we have here in this country. I'm going to make a lot of comparisons tonight. Now, I'm not saying I'm not saying that the U.S. is anywhere near as bad as China, but there are comparisons. So get over that. Terroristic threat here in the United States has a very similar effect. I actually know a veteran who got arrested for terroristic threat. And the bare minimum to have terroristic threat is ridiculous. It is absolutely insane. Back to the Uighurs. And it's Uighurs, but it's spelt Uighurs for those that are thinking that I'm saying something else. That was one of my things. I was like, can I say Uighur? I don't know if I can say that. So whenever they're in these re-education camps, there's a lot of shit that ends up happening. going back to John Oliver here, there's several people who have escaped these concentration camps. Here's one of the ladies, and her story of just like, it's a very quick snippet, but it's absolutely insane.
Each woman gets 2 minutes to go to the toilet. They tell you to be quick, quick, quick. If you're not quick enough, they shock you with an electric baton on the back of your head. It really hurt, and they did it a lot. Even after being shocked, we had to say, "Thank you, teacher, we will not be late next time."
I mean, that's just one. There's this one. This is that same Vice story where they actually talked to some who actually escaped the concentration camps, or escaped China, rather.
Only a few Uyghurs who've been detained have managed to escape the country in the last few years. In Istanbul, we joined a rare gathering between a group of former detainees to talk about their experiences together for the first time. They answered the questions we couldn't ask while we were in China.
Bu pasport birleşinin şartı DNA'nı bir şey oluyor otelde. Tamam. Hem böyle DNA'nı verdik, yine avazımın aldı. İşki var katıp avazımın edip bari pasport vergen sonra.
Benim tutkandaşta kaldı. Benim her kolumnu mıçta tutturup aldı. Mayakkala burnumның şekilleri hem yerimni aldı. Ki onun da keyin südükni tekşirdi.
I don't know if you are able to like read that quick, so I guess I could just read it for you. They did those checks on me as well. They recorded my face and even the shape of my nose. They did a urine test. If they found out you were pregnant, they would terminate it right away. They assigned Chinese people to live in my sister's house. In an official Chinese report, they assigned 1.2 million Han Chinese to live in Uyghur and I missed what the other one was. To live in Uyghur and Kazakhs' homes. Some of women who couldn't take the humiliation committed suicide.
All you guys spent time in the camps. I mean, what was your crime? What were you each taken in for?
Because I studied the Quran and learned Arabic. They said that I tried to corrupt others' ideology and divide the country. I opened a Uyghur language school and a kindergarten, so they took me. I was in for 15 months. They forced me to confess to really serious crimes, like organizing terrorists and sheltering terrorists. Right here, they gave me this letter saying that I was a terrorist.
So this is from the state security?
Yes, it is.
Have you been involved in terrorism?
They did it because I'm Muslim and I'm a Uyghur. My feet were shackled for 1 year, 3 months, and 10 days.
What were the similarities in terms of actually being taken to these camps?
They arrested people at night. They want people to disappear and be untrackable. They interrogate all of us one by one. I heard sounds of crying and beating from the next cell over. Before every meal, we had to sing 3 songs in order to get permission to eat. Without the Communist Party, there won't be a new China. The Communist Party toiled for the nation. Because I refused to sing, I was tortured 5 different ways. They tied my arms and legs on a thing they called the tiger chair. They don't care if people die in the dark, isolated rooms either. Because I didn't speak their language, I didn't eat pork, and I didn't follow their orders. I was in solitary for 1 month. Their main purpose is creating communist robots, changing our culture and religion into their format, to live in a socialist or communist society. This video goes on, and they actually go and you saw the video of the little girl. This video goes on to where they actually go back to Xinjiang and find these schools, quote unquote. They're like boarding schools. What's insane? They actually, just to prove that this was happening, that they were actually shipping these people out, and they were quite literally arresting people in the middle of the night. You actually see that at the beginning of this video. they look at the population sizes. Like these are actual normal reports that come from China, because the communists are very efficient in their paperwork, and show the population growth in 1 year. It's asinine. The amount of population growth that some of these towns got. Also, the buildings that they constructed that were very beautiful, but also were surrounded by barbed wire and gates and everything else. So they have these kids practically in orphanages, and they're re-educating the kids. That's really how they're going to weed out the Uyghurs, is by kidnapping the kids and converting them to their idea of Chinese people. It's a hell of a lot easier to indoctrinate people whenever they're kids. Now, if we want to talk about similarities there, I give you the Department of Education. Cheers. It is practically a giant cult, Ruby. Absolutely. There's so much shit like this that is very similar. It's very eerily similar to some things that I've seen. And it just... really, the main point of all of this is a government out of control can end up doing shit like this. A prime example of this that I've personally witnessed is I don't know if y'all heard about it, but well, I'm sure you did. It was on national news. But the Twin Peaks shooting in Texas, in Waco, Texas, that happened to involve the Banditos and the Cossacks. 73 people were arrested, held on $1 million bonds. $1 million that were quite literally photocopied. They quite literally just photocopied the bonds and the warrants and just wrote new names in. 3 people were charged out of that 73 people. 0 have been found guilty. 0. Some people spent over 6 months in jail because they couldn't afford $1 million bond. I mean, I could get into some crazy shit about asset forfeiture, which is a fucking crime in of itself. But just in my lifetime, very similar shit there. They weren't allowed to talk about it, weren't allowed to do any of that shit. And the only reason that I know so much about what happened there was because we were on our way there. I was part of a motorcycle club in Austin. We were on our way there whenever we heard about the shots being fired. We were about 5 minutes away. And so, like, we showed up and they were policing off the area, or roping off the area. Glad I went there whenever it happened. But that shit happened. It was not a gang fight as the police tried to portray it. It was not a territorial dispute. No, we were there for, quite literally, COC&I, which is Confederations of Clubs and Independents, which is for lack of a better term, a lobbyist group. It's a fucking lobbyist group. Their main concerns are laws that affect motorcyclists. That's their big goal. Like helmet laws, lane splitting. And after that, it really turned into profiling. Profiling was a big thing after that. It's absolutely insane what a government can do unrestrained. Now, back in 2019, whenever it came to the Uyghurs, there was a lot of concerns about the reports getting out about these concentration camps and everything else. And so journalists were invited by the Communist Party to tour these re-education camps. And we have that video.
We've seen China's Muslim re-education camps the way the Chinese wanted us to see them on a tightly controlled tour earlier this year. And we've seen glimpses from leaked videos like this one. China says the camps stop Muslim Uyghurs from becoming extremists and offer free job training. But now an inside look in the Chinese government's own words. A leaked 9-page memo reads like a how-to manual, telling officials to strictly implement measures to prevent escape. That means 24/7 video surveillance, watchtowers, and double-locked doors.
The headline is, "We're doing something really nasty to a lot of people and it's secret."
Adrian Zenz is a German researcher who's considered an authority on China's detention of ethnic minorities.
Hang on a second. We need to listen to that part again.
We're doing something really nasty to a lot of people and it's secret.
Adrian Zenz is a German researcher who's considered an authority on China's detention of ethnic minorities.
A German researcher. I'm pretty sure if the Germans are saying you have concentration camps, you fucking have concentration camps. Maybe that's just me. Considering they were the first to do it.
Did someone take a huge risk in leaking these documents?
In Xinjiang, people have been sentenced to death for much less.
Zenz estimates up to 1.8 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities have been sent to the camps since 2017.
That is a stunning number of
1.8 million since 2017. 1.8 million. Million. Isn't that like the population of like all of California? Isn't LA like 1 million?
people. 1.8 million people in camps.
Well, it's probably the largest internment of an ethnic or religious minority since the Holocaust.
Even he's compared to the Holocaust!
A series of classified bulletins show how easy it is to be singled out by the Chinese government for education and training. Simply using a certain app or communicating with people overseas can draw suspicion. In 2017, Rushan
Hey,
Abbas,
Emily, good to see
Uyghur
you.
American, stopped calling her family in China to protect them.
There are over 1 million innocent Uyghur people.
But then last year, she criticized China during a public panel in Washington.
6 days after I talked, my sister and my aunt both got abducted on the same day as a retaliation for my activism.
You don't think it was a coincidence?
I don't think so.
Her sister is still missing.
You literally don't know where she is.
No, I don't. I don't even know if she's still alive or not.
When the Chinese government says these are vocational camps, they're helping train people for new jobs, what do you say to that?
That is a complete lie. Many people in the camps are university professors, writers, poets.
This is a story they don't want to.
I mean, that's the other way they keep people silent. They escape, but if you speak out against them, they're going to go after your family. This is the same shit that we hear that's coming out of North Korea, which I'll be talking about North Korea probably in 2 weeks. I got a couple of different other ones I want to talk. I got one that I want to talk about before that. I'm pretty much going to like go country, U.S., country, U.S., country, U.S. If y'all are wondering how the schedule is going to go with this, I'm going to have some things that I want to talk about the U.S. in between talking about what's going on in other fucking countries, because I think personally, my personal opinions dealing with problems here are really more important than anywhere else, but we definitely should know about what's going on in the rest of the world. I think that's fair, and that's how I'm going to kind of run these type of Let's Talks. This is China. The topic here is China. This is actually talking about China. North Korea. That shit happens in North Korea, Jason. We'll be talking about North Korea. Really, I mean, it's just absolutely fucking insane what they're doing to this population. And it doesn't end there. It doesn't end just with the whole forced sterilization. It doesn't end with the re-education camps. It doesn't end with the abduction of the little kids. It doesn't end with any of that. We also have to deal with forced labor. They took these same, I think it was 80,000. Yeah. We took these same 80,000 and ended up forcing them into forced labor to make masks.
If you are one of the millions of people around the world wearing a face mask because of the coronavirus pandemic, this footage may concern you. It shows a group of Uighurs arriving at a textile company that started producing masks in response to the pandemic. The Uighurs are a long-persecuted, largely Muslim ethnic minority. This slickly produced video from Chinese state TV appears to show grateful workers getting ready for their new jobs. But behind this propaganda is a hidden story about a long-standing and highly controversial government labor program that experts say often puts people to work against their will.
Majority of the masks that were actually shipped to the United States came from China. I want to say it's like 30% of them that we wore all last year. Those little blue masks were more than likely made by Uighurs, by forced labor. Now, it doesn't just end with the Uighurs and doing forced labor just on the masks. No. We have the whole wonderful billion-dollar corporations that we have to deal with this as well. Because it's all about the money to them. All about the money. One of the biggest ones was Nike. Nike estimated made 19% of their entire sales come from China. 19%. Another one. Let me exit out of these videos because we don't even need to have them up anymore. And this is the first time I'm doing this, so I like to have it somewhat organized, guys, but I'm trying to just get this all out. Another one, there was an estimated 83 companies that were accused of having their products made by forced labor in China, mainly the Uighurs.
Are global brands such as Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, Nike, and others using products made by ethnic Uyghurs under forced labor? A report by an Australian think tank claims that is the case. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute says at least 80,000 Uyghurs have been forcibly transferred out of Xinjiang to factories in China that make products for global brands.
80,000 of these Uyghurs are being forced into making products. Children at sweatshops, there's all sorts of shit. Later, Mayberry, good seeing ya. My Ruby says my uncle worked in China for a year and they made him sign an NDA. What's up, Joe? Good to see you. I would have guessed the Nike percentage to be on the higher than that. Shoes must not be their highest sales. No, it'd be clothing. Clothing would probably actually be Nike's highest sell right there. But this isn't just about Nike. Volkswagen, BMW, H&M, tons of companies. This guy's actually about to talk about Volkswagen and Mercedes.
Xinjiang in China's northwest is where China has allegedly detained some 1 million Uyghurs in detention camps, ostensibly to fight terrorism. The report also says some of these 80,000 Uyghurs were transferred from detention camps to the factories. In these factories, claim the report's authors, Uyghurs were forced to take part in so-called patriotic education, prevented from practicing other. We contacted some of them catered to live in carefully guarded dormitories. Now, the factories in question catered to some 83 foreign and Chinese companies. We contacted some of the German firms named in the report, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, that's owned by Daimler, and BMW. All three said they take their corporate human rights responsibilities seriously. Let's begin with Volkswagen. Volkswagen told us that the company Hybrid Advanced Material, which was mentioned in the report, is currently not a direct supplier of Volkswagen.
So Hybrid Advanced Material is the company largely identified as what is using Uyghur forced labor. It's a Chinese company that is using Uyghur forced labor. Now, Hybrid Advanced Material is basically it's almost like a wholesaler for a lot of shit, including cotton, which there are reports of Uyghurs picking cotton, like traditional African American slaves here in the United States, being forced to pick cotton for Hybrid Advanced Materials to then sell that to other places that make other things that then get shipped to these places. For example, like Hybrid probably actually sells to another company in China and then turns the cotton into whatever. But that's what Hybrid Advanced Material does.
The firm said they were investigating the claims. Daimler, which owns Mercedes-Benz, said Hybrid is no direct supplier to Daimler, and our previous investigations have revealed no further indication. BMW told us they couldn't comment on the report, but said that suppliers are required to implement BMW's policies, which prohibit the use of forced labor. China, too, has responded to the claims made in the report. Here's what a foreign ministry spokesman said.
The report has no factual basis. This organisation has repeatedly thrown out prejudice-filled fallacies related to the Xinjiang issue. It's only doing so now to follow American anti-China forces and smear China's efforts to oppose terrorism and fight extremism in Xinjiang.
They always go back to the same line. It's fighting extremism. It's fighting extremism. That's all we're doing. We're just fighting extremism, not using slave labor, completely sterilizing women and children and an entire race of people in our northern province. No, we're not doing that. Why would we do that? Twisted Art Lady, yes, patriotic education is absolutely disturbing. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but they actually have to sing like 3 different songs before they can even eat. Some scary fucking shit. But it's not just Nike. And I mean, I get why. Coca-Cola was another one, because Coca-Cola, Budweiser, who else? Versace, Gap, Marriott, Dolce & Gabbana. All of those companies have come under fire because of this shit too, because they use that forced labor cotton. Maybe think about where you buy from next. I think there was actually a report. Yeah. How much of the world's products are made in China? 28% of the world's products are made in China. And how many U.S. goods are made in China? U.S. goods imported from China totaled $539.5 billion in 2018, up 6.7%. $34 billion from the 2017 report, and up 59% from 2008. And since 2001, they were up 427%. U.S. imports from China account for 21% of the overall U.S. imports in 2018. 21%. That is the largest piece of the pie as far as our imports. How many of those are being used by the slave labor? How much of that money isn't actually going to a Chinese company or to help a farmer or any of that other shit, but just going right back into the Communist Party? Here was just an interesting stat. What percent of Walmart products are made in China? 70 to 80% of things that you buy from Walmart come from China. Hey guys, we got 18 people in here and only 9 likes. Hey, hit that like button. 70 to 80% from Walmart, the nation's largest employer. I'm curious how many come from Amazon, but I don't think we're going to have those numbers. I mean, I can't think of what doesn't come from China and Walmart. Probably the produce section? Maybe? One of the biggest things, the top 3 imports of China, we get a lot of integrated circuits and microassemblies. We also get a shit ton of crude oil from them, iron ores and concentrates, and petroleum gases. Those are the top 4. There's a lot more stuff in here that I didn't read. I was reading a lot of stuff like what was bad about that whole Walmart thing was I quite literally had just got done shopping at Walmart because it's convenient, it's really close to my home, and it's right there. And 80% of the products I probably bought, 70 to 80% of the products I bought came from there. Hell, I'm curious. I'm wearing, if y'all don't know who this is Dan Crenshaw. This is his very first, whenever he first was running for Congress, this was his very first t-shirt. My father-in-law drove his truck at the parade on St. Patrick's Day. He's one of the few conservatives that I actually vote for. Or the traditional Republicans that I vote for is probably the better way of putting it. Traditional Republican that I vote. I'm curious if this shirt was made in Taiwan. I have no idea. I should have looked. Phil says integrated circuits like microchips. Yes, like microchips. It'd be microchips. It'd be parts of microchips, really, is what that would be. It'd be the integrated circuits. So, like the boards themselves, that type of shit. That's what it would be. But I mean, I can't completely blame Nike, Coca-Cola, all those other places for not wanting their pocketbooks to get hit. I mean, here's a video of a guy who spent 12 hours a day putting one screw in the iPhone. Apple as well, if y'all didn't know about that. In this video, let me see if I can find it.
The whole factories have 7 sub-factories, but they are all in one main campus. There are required uniform. We have a blue hat, and then we have a pink shirt and a blue pants. But we only get one set of it. And workers also wear slippers. We have a locker room. That's where workers change their clothes, put their phones, their keys, all the medals. Some workers, very rarely, they do have iPhones, but most of the workers, they use some kind of like China-produced phones, which are cheaper. We need.
That's another little part about this. They're being so underpaid. I think he actually talks about what they get, and they make like $100 a week putting one screw in a fucking iPhone for 12 hours a day, and that's 6 days a week. That's not your 5-hour workday or, 12 on and then 12 for 4 and then 3 days off. No. That's 6 days a week. They only get Sunday off. And they make $400 a week. This factory that he's talking about here, they have nets in the stairwell to keep people from jumping off the stairwell to commit suicide. They have nets around the exterior, like off the top, so if you try to commit suicide, you can't. You can't throw yourself off of the building. And this is Apple. I can proudly say I've never purchased an Apple product because I just don't like it. But I'm sure my Samsung is the same story. And every single work phone that I've ever owned, work phone, is a fucking iPhone. Every single one. I've never had an Android work phone. $400 a week, where do I sign up? Man, that's fucking nothing. That is fucking nothing. $400 a week, what is that? 400 times 52? Maybe I'm thinking it's $100 a week. That could be what I'm thinking. Hang on. That's $20,000 a year for a 6-day work week. That's practically nothing. It may be 400. It may be 400. I'm not 100%. He does talk about it in this video. This one's called, "This Man Worked Undercover in a Chinese iPhone Factory." Let me see exactly.
So what I do is just put one screw that fasten the speaker factories in Shanghai. So what I do is just put one screw in the factories at 7:30, and then we will spend 12 hours inside of the factories. But actually, we only do 10.5 hours work because the break time is deducted. You get bored because you're just repeatedly doing the same thing. The amounts that I get is 3,100 yuan. I think that's around $450. It's per month.
Oh, sorry, that's per month. $450 per month, not a week. I was wrong. $450 per month. That's even worse. $5,400 a year.
But it's included the base salary plus the overtime wages. We only take a break once a week on Sunday. During my time there, I think there are about 70,000 workers inside of the factories. The factory is pretty big. The whole factories have 7 sub-factories, but they are all in one main campus. There are required uniforms, only wear some kind of, and then they have face recognition chipper. We need to swipe our card. And then they have face recognition, and then the door will open and you get in. After you get in, you wait in line to go through a metal detector. But that was during the time that I was producing iPhone 6s. When I was producing iPhone 7, they increased their security level. When I get into the 4th floor, I need to swipe my card again and go through another metal detector. One thing that shocked me most, I think, is the attitude of the manager. Like, yelling at workers is kind of a routine in the factories. There are still some facilities or mechanism that prevents workers commit suicide. They have the nets
there
in
it
the
is.
stairs,
Yeah.
and also all the windows, they have this ceiling like cage where you can jump from your window. So we live in a dorm, and there are multiple dorms in the factory. Some are located inside of the main campus, some are off campus. My dorm is off campus. We need to take a shuttle bus, which is about 10 minutes. So inside of the room, 8 people live
8 people living together inside these dorms.
together, but in one floor we only have one restroom and one bathroom for shower. It's shared by about 200 people.
One bathroom and one shower shared by 200 fucking people.
Because we have about 20-ish rooms in one floor. Workers generally do 2 things. They either stay in their dorm to watch movies on their phone, or they go to internet cafe to play video games. And they get inside the factory workshop. One of them, the one that we have most, is inside the factory workshop building. They have 8 types of combo. Some of them are just noodles and with no meat and just some vegetable. Those are the cheap ones, which is like 5 yuan. So
okay, so he gets paid $450 a year, but it costs $5 to fucking buy a meal every day. And there's no meat in it.
in the factories, I saw a lot of workers male.
Oh, and this guy's not a Uyghur. He's a normal Chinese citizen who just happened to graduate from NYU.
The age is like 18 to 30. They're very social, they're very friendly, and everybody have a very interesting life and very unique characteristics. Typically in the weekend, they go out of the campus because there is a very big market very close to the campus where there's a lot of restaurants. People get roast chicken sometimes as a treat for their
Yeah, I know it's won, not dollars, but it's their fucking money.
weekend. And people get beer and have a gathering together. But those are only happens in Sunday typically. You're not allowed to drink inside of the dorm, and also you're not allowed to smoke in the dorm. And when you are drunk or you're wasted, you're not allowed to get into the dorm because there are some cases that workers fight because of that. The turnover rate is very high in the factory.
1 is 0.15 cents. It's 15 cents in the US. Okay. Still. Dude only makes $450.
People left after 2 weeks or a month. I won't say people are proud of their work, but I would say that they just consider it a job that can give them money. Somehow you feel exciting. Typically at the end of the day, when the line manager is counting down that, saying that we have 500 pieces left, 200 pieces, you see workers are like smile, they talk with each other, and that was the moments that you feel really good at the end of the day.
I mean, that's a normal Chinese citizen. Making $5,400 a year. That's it. Buscal mentions in 2020, the United States and China reached an enforceable agreement on Phase 1 trade deal that requires structural reforms and other changes to China's economic and trade regimes in that area. Yeah, but that's why we're still getting reports to this, even as late as July, that they're still using slave labor, especially the Uyghurs. And I'm going to get to that here in just a second. Yeah, you have the whole thing about intellectual property, technology transfer, all that, and then they have a Chinese-ran company like TikTok, who they're really concerned about is actually stealing fucking user info and giving that to the Chinese government. And that was just last year. And EB brought up a great point there, too. Also had the fucking who said that there wasn't an outbreak at the beginning of COVID. China does not give a shit about that. They also don't give a shit about intellectual property. They don't give a shit about copyrights. They don't give a shit about any of that. None of it. And back to whole fucking Nike fucktards here. I can't blame them completely. I cannot blame Nike completely because, I mean, yeah, 19%. I understand that. But here's the other bullshit right here. Let me see if it'll actually show up here. I don't know if it's going to. Nike and Coca-Cola lobby against the Zhejiang forced labor bill. This was a bill that was put in. This was updated in January 2020. Nike and Coca-Cola are among major companies and business groups lobbying Congress to weaken a bill that would ban imported goods made with forced labor in China's Zhejiang region. That's the Uighurs. The cotton that they pick. It gained bipartisan support, passing the House in September by a margin of 406 to 3. I'm not even talking about, because I mean, like, this video would be way too fucking long. Way too fucking long. But I'm not even talking about the trade war that is currently going on that I didn't even know about, because nobody in the U.S. is talking about it. The trade war, not with the U.S., because we do have one of those, but with Australia. There's a legit trade war happening right now between China and Australia over this bullshit. Part of the issue that we have here with the whole forced labor and all of this, and why some of these companies, because they have 19% of sales or more, or a lot of their products or pieces and parts of their products are made from China, is this problem.
Statement from Nike resurfacing over concerns of forced labor. Our Eunice Yoon has been following the story closely as we watch shares of Nike well, off the lows this morning, but nonetheless still down 3.5%, Eunice.
Yeah, and probably for good reason. You know, here tonight, we are seeing videos of Chinese burning Nike shoes online. Those have been circulating all day today.
It sounds like Colin Kaepernick, like they were protesting Colin Kaepernick kneeling.
Amid calls to boycott the company. Now, Nike has been in the crosshairs today because of what appears to be a past statement from the company, which said that they expressed concern about reports of forced labor in the Muslim area of Xinjiang. This is in the far west, and said that the company had dropped Xinjiang cotton from the supply chain. So Nike is just one of now several companies here that have been facing this type of criticism from the Chinese public. That includes the Gap, Adidas, Fila, New Balance, Uniqlo, as well as Zara. And this all comes after the U.S. as well as other countries in the West say.
So you're seeing this price difference over here, that they were down $4 per share from a company that before this was around $140 per share. Now, I will have a video on the stock market, and hopefully I will actually have a guest for that one, because I know somebody that can talk way better about it than I can, and the type of manipulations that can happen in there, and like really what this number means. But that $4 a share in a day, whenever a company is valued over $136, is astronomical. Like you would think, like, oh, it's only $4 if I have one share. Most people don't have one share of a company. Most of these companies, especially with the stock market, it's other companies that are invested or hedge funds, shit like that. They have like thousands, if not millions of shares. So that $4 drop becomes so much bigger. So much bigger. That's why they always are like freaking out whenever like the NASDAQ or the Dow or any of that drops 2%. Like that's a lot of movement for something that has a lot of investment. Like, yeah, it says it's at 128. Really, you should probably add about 4 zeros to that. Losing $1 million that you invested in a company. It's a big deal. Big deal. Big deal.
Sanction Beijing over what they see as.
By the way, this was March 2021. I don't know if you can see that. Hang on. March 2021. March 25th, 2021. It's only a couple months ago.
Treatment of the Muslim Uighurs. So Chinese celebrities have cut ties with Nike. Also tonight, Chinese online have been calling for Chinese sports teams to drop Nike sponsorships. The good news here is that so far Nike stores have been open all day. Their products are still available on Alibaba, JD, as well as other sites. And that isn't the case for some of the other international brands. Likely good news for Nike, given that China accounts for 23% of Nike's brand sales.
So I said 19%, but this is this year, 23%. They went up another 3%, 4%. That number, that 19, I think was 2019. They're up another 4%. Like Chinese sales for Nike account for 23%.
What I thought was also interesting today was that the Global Times editor, who's quite influential of this Communist Party paper, had said that the Chinese government shouldn't fan these flames, but instead that international brands should go back to their governments and.
Okay, listen to this part. This is the important part.
But instead that influential of this Communist Party paper had said that the Chinese government shouldn't fan these flames, but instead that international brands should go back to their governments and lobby to be able to use Xinjiang cotton. And the reasoning here, and I think what really highlights is that.
Did you just hear that? The Chinese government told these brands, take it up with your government. Whatever our Congresses are practically bought and fucking paid for. The Chinese government is quite literally telling Nike and Coca-Cola to do this. This is the problem with the world economy whenever you're dealing with a dictator like fucking China. How can they compete with that? Because China can quite literally lock down all the shit. They did it to H&M.
Joining me right now is the president of the Eurasia Group and the president of G0 Media, Ian Bremmer. Also with us all morning long this morning is James Freeman from the Wall Street Journal and Brian Brenberg. Great to see everybody this morning. Ian, thanks very much for joining me. Welcome back to the program. I guess let me get your assessment of where we are in this competition with China and your reaction to how the U.S. is handling this threat. As we know, the CCP wants to put China back where they say it rightfully belongs as the #1 superpower of the world, which would be overtaking the United States.
Fucking gnat.
You know, as you know, Maria, that meeting we had in Anchorage.
I don't care. Where's that?
But CC for concerns of the state media-run Global Times newspaper calling for boycotts of brands like H&M, Burberry, Nike over the concerns of the forced labor of the Uyghur Muslims. The Journal reports on this morning in a story in the paper, as well as.
I like this headline here: Beijing's global cancel culture. Beijing's global cancel culture. Really, we just kind of need to take off Beijing and global, and we really get to the fucking meat of the issue here. Cancel culture. This is what cancel culture can do. It can quite literally okay slave labor. This is why freedom of speech is so important. It's why it's number one on our fucking Bill of Rights. Because a government unchecked, because a government that can dictate what you say, and really, China does this smart because they hit you in the fucking pocketbook, can get you with the whole cancel culture bullshit. So if you don't agree with what the fuck we have to say, no more money for you. Tell you one news source that you should trust? None of them. I'll tell you some that I get my news from, and I'll address that at the end. Yeah, Jason. Actually, Jason absolutely said it right there. You need to watch multiple, and you need to kind of weed out the fucking opinions, and you need to get to the actual core of what's going on, and then you also need to focus on what the fuck they're not telling you. That's fucking really important. What the fuck they aren't telling you.
On the editorial board, the Journal op-ed says Beijing's global cancel culture, Ian, writing, the Communist Party's strategy is to use China's market power as leverage to shut down critics anywhere in the world. China will continue these commercial beatings until they no longer work, Ian.
That's what cancel culture is! Quite literally using all your shit to be able to effectively change the way a place operates. Welcome to socialism, welcome to communism, because socialism always turns into communism. That's the only way that it works. I thought this was the one that talked about what happened to H&M. It's not. Well, actually, it may be. Hang on. Oh, there it is. Yep, okay. This is where it's at.
CCP has done to H&M. Ian, on beatings until they no longer work, Ian. And, it was really stunning to me reading the story in the Journal this morning about what the CCP has done to H&M.
Yeah, right here.
On Thursday, you couldn't even order a car to an H&M store. It was impossible on Didi. That's like the Uber of China, the country's largest ride-hailing app, because it did not recognize the brand as a valid destination, Ian. You search for H&M on multiple Chinese map apps, including Baidu, others, zero results. As if.
What if Google Maps all of a sudden just said, nope, there's no H&M store here? No, there's no Starbucks. There's no Walmart. They quite literally, other than the physical buildings themselves, erased them off the fucking map. The government did that in 1 day. 1 day. They hit the Uber drivers, which most people in China either Uber, they don't drive a whole lot. Uber, walk, any of that shit. Blacklisted H&M, who has physical locations in their country, erased them off the fucking map. How do you think that affects sales?
The clothing company did not even exist, despite the fact that, Ian, it has 400 stores in China right now.
Yeah, well, maybe
they have 400 stores, and you couldn't find a single fucking one.
400 stores, not for long, Maria. I mean, look, the fact is that the Chinese.
Right. Yeah. Despite the fact that, Ian, it has 400 stores in China right now.
Yeah, well, maybe 400 stores, not for long, Maria. I mean, look, the fact is that the Chinese economy, as you know, is the second largest economy in the world. It's on track to being the first within a decade. And the Chinese government is making very clear that they are intending to use that power against countries that behave in ways they don't like. Remember, there's a massive trade war going on with Australia right now. It doesn't get as much.
This news story is how I found out about the trade war with Australia. Like, no shit. This news story is how I found out about that Australia had a trade war with China. I didn't know that was a thing. How the fuck do you compete with that? Now, that's just a little bit of censorship. So I understand logically why companies would rather fight the U.S. government than fight the Chinese government. Because China has such a stranglehold that they can just flip the switch and you don't exist anymore. Unlike here in America where we have freedom, well, freedom, quote unquote, and you can have all these businesses and everything else, and Google isn't going to just erase your fucking location. That's kind of partly why the boycott against Chick-fil-A hasn't worked, because everybody knows where Chick-fil-A is, and let's face it, it's fucking delicious. And apparently eating it makes you hate gay people, which I don't understand because it's fucking good and it's just fucking chicken. But yeah, that's just me. And I say that as an LGBTQ plus person, the plus of the LGBTQ plus. Fucking chicken's delicious. I love me some hate chicken. Just saying, I like hate chicken. I may get some people mad at me, but fuck them. I love hate chicken. I don't care. They can't just erase you off the fucking map. It's a hell of a lot easier to fight the U.S. government and be like, hey, you need a here's a couple of $1 million to your next campaign. Just weaken that bill a little bit for me. Weaken that bill a little bit for me. It's fucking insane. And it's not just companies like that. It's Hollywood too. I'm sure y'all heard about John Cena which I didn't know the dude spoke English, much less spoke Chinese until recently.
For Fast and Furious 9, John Cena gave an interview with the Taiwanese broadcaster TVBS, where he said that Taiwan would be the first country to be able to watch the movie. That quickly became a massive issue for John Cena and the movie, because if you're not aware, calling Taiwan a country is a quick way to get canceled in China. The mainland is dead serious there that Taiwan is a part of China and not a separate country. So what we ended up seeing was John Cena, who actually turns out to speak passable conversational Mandarin, apologizing in a video. What's kind of funny is that this video ended up pissing off people on both sides. Right?
I mean, apparently, like, so I actually did some research into this when it first came out. The WWE, who John Cena works for, makes a lot of money in China. I mean, it makes a shit ton of money in China. Shit ton of money in China. And so McMahon, who owns WWE, Vince McMahon, who owns WWE, actually had John Cena learn Mandarin because he was the big name star at the time. Made him learn fucking Mandarin so that he would be able to have conversational dialogue with the Chinese people, with the fans. And I understand why. Like, I want y'all to understand this. Hollywood has bowed big time. Like, you had that whole South Park episode about fucking Disney going ape shit on fucking China. Like, that whole video is absolutely hilarious. Let me actually, I want to share some clips of that. I honestly do. Fuck it. I'm already being banned anyway. Let's just go full tilt. South Park, China. Am I not going to be able to find the clip? They got banned for this.
Get away from that farm more than anything, but it's not worth living in a world where China controls my country's arts.
There was a lot of really funny shit in that. Like, you even had Mickey Mouse like bitch slapping NBA players, tell them to apologize and all that, which we're gonna touch on the NBA here in a minute. So, but this shit was fucking amazing. And China straight out bans fucking South Park because of this, which, fuck them. You know, I mean, personally. But back to John Cena. Fast 9, I was very confused by this because I feel like the Fast 9 franchise is it's for Chads, really. Lone Star's not here, and I haven't seen Chadio, so I can say this. It's for fucking Chads. But I fucking watch it. I have watched it. I didn't realize how much money Hollywood makes off of China. And here's an example. For F9, which is the movie that John Cena was interviewing for and all that other shit, it made $198 million. $198 million the first weekend. The first weekend. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. $198 million in China. I'd fucking apologize too. I'm just saying. It's bullshit, but I'd fucking apologize too if I was getting a piece of that action, even 10%. That's where fucking China gets all U.S. companies. It's all about the fucking money. even 10%. Shit, if I was getting 1%. Yeah, 1% would be $1 million. I'd fucking apologize to China too. Shit. Lone Star says I'm here just lurking. Jason, I don't disagree with you. But that all Fast and Furious movies are the same goddamn thing. But let's just see. How much money has the entire Fast and Furious franchise made in China? So Fast 7 made $390 million in China. So just those two movies alone, $500 million for just 2 of the 9. $198 plus $390. Yeah, we're over half a billion. $500 million. What the fuck can we do? I mean, everybody wanted to come out and say, we can fucking see you now, John Cena. Yeah, because you're a fucking kiss ass. But fuck! What can you do about that? This is the problem with the global economy. This is the problem with the global economy. Because you end up having to deal with fucking countries like this. Laz, you say we can open a bar tab in China's name. We have that. It's called the U.S. deficit. I wanted to be able to throw some fucking shade and be all pissed off about the NBA. Because we had I don't remember the guy's name, but he came out with a tweet in support of Hong Kong, which we'll get into. He had a tweet about Hong Kong saying free Hong Kong. And China immediately shut down NBA rebroadcasts. Shut down NBA broadcasts. All of them, the whole league. And then you had LeBron James and this jackass who's from my own fucking city.
Yeah, we apologize. We love China. We love, playing there. I know for both of us individually, we go there, once or twice a year. They show us the most important love. So, we appreciate them as a fan base, and we love everything, they're about, and we appreciate their support that they give us individually and as an organization. So.
Apologizing to China on national fucking television for something he didn't even say. And so I had to look into it. How much does the NBA make off of fucking China? Per season? $200 million. That's just in the air rights. That's just in them showing the fucking games. They make $200 million. So you goddamn right. I'm willing to bet he doesn't know a fucking thing about China. Neither does LeBron. But whenever the NBA fucking comes down and says, you want to have that fat contract? You want to get paid those millions of dollars to dribble a ball and shoot some hoops and, you know, have your sponsorships and everything else? Better go apologize to China. Now, this story was the most interesting to me whenever it came to a lot of, because there's been a lot of things. Like I mentioned Fast 9, but the NBA was an amazing one for me because this was the only one that we really got to see people react to. By showing up to fucking games. Looking like this. Oh, God damn it. They showed up on the television screen rocking this. And I don't know if y'all caught some of the news stories and actually watched this shit happen in real time, but they fucking were cutting away from these people. And it wasn't just these guys, these 4 white guys sitting here that are, well, sorry, 3 white guys and 1, I don't know, that are wearing really nice clothes. They did this to everybody. Everybody. They would cut away from them. It's fucking insane the stranglehold that China has on the fucking NBA. And it's all about that fucking money. Which I can't really blame them. I mean, that's the capitalist dream, right? But we're not dealing with capitalists, we're dealing with a fucking dictatorship. A communist dictatorship that has a stranglehold on their fucking country, uses goddamn slave labor, sterilizes people, wrongfully imprisons them, doesn't have term limits, got rid of that shit. They will cripple you. They will just fucking cripple you. I mean, it's not even just the NBA, it's not any of just that shit. It's also it's just their people. Just their fucking people. I brought up the Hong Kong issue. So if nothing else, this will get me banned in China. Just this sign right here. Just having this on my screen will have me banned in China. I got another one at the end that'll definitely just seal the fucking deal. Mooskow says if the world wants a better China, countries around the world need to ban Chinese products all at the same time, but that could hurt innocent Chinese citizens. Mooskow, you're right. That's what we need to do. Is that going to happen? No. Because at the same time that we ban all Chinese products, the exact same time that we ban all Chinese products, immediate economic depression globally. Globally. Because they fucking make 23% of our imports. 23% of our imports vanishing overnight. 1/4 of our entire economy disappearing. Not to mention the imports that we have that come from other countries, but are made with imported goods from China. Perfect example is those cars. Mercedes, everything else, right? That they were talking about the Uighurs aren't part of that. How quick that actual 25% ends up becoming maybe 50%. Because all the imports that we're getting from those other countries that also use imported goods from China and then send us what was there. How quick is that gone? But Hong Kong. You haven't heard anything about Hong Kong in a while, have you? I know I haven't. Hong Kong has a very interesting history with China. I want to say that the little island on the south is Hong Kong. I'm not 100% sure though. Because this one over here is Taiwan. The one right there, I think that's Taiwan. I think the one down there is Hong Kong. I'm not 100% sure though. Hong Kong is legally part of China. Even the U.S. recognizes that. What was special about Hong Kong, and I don't think a lot of people know this, when China really started ramping up its infrastructure and wanting to become a world power economically, what the hell? My phone just freaked out. That's interesting. Hey, I gotta check on something. Make sure that my phone's not being hacked or some shit. Y'all can still see me, right? Okay, yeah, no, we're good. Okay, whoo, that was weird. Very fucking weird. When China was looking at starting implementing all these things, where they started making stuff, where they started being more of a world influence, especially economically wise, Hong Kong was given the opportunity to be more like the West. Then really the thought behind it was, if we open up free market, everything else, then, but we still control it, we'll be allowed, we'll be able to grow faster, we'll get those contracts, everything else. So the majority of companies that actually operate in China, a lot of them were based out of Hong Kong, like a vast majority of them. Well, with this Western influence and this lackadaisical loose grip that China was giving Hong Kong, came Western ideologies, free speech, Second Amendment, no censorship, all of that. Democracy. They even had a council in Hong Kong that ran the city with the approval of Beijing. It was a very, lack of a better term, almost shadow puppets. And then China implemented this.
But on June 30th, 2020, the consequences of showing dissent in Hong Kong would become more dangerous than ever.
China has proposed a new law that could end any dream of democracy for Hong Kong.
A national security law written behind closed doors in Beijing was only made public the moment the law went into force.
Beijing says it aims to tackle sedition, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign forces.
The new law is about control and making clear who has it. Now, inciting separatism and colluding with foreign powers are considered crimes. The punishment, up to life in prison.
It's the very first time a piece of legislation is not examined at all in our legislature before it's enforced by Beijing.
So this guy that's talking right there is actually a politician in Hong Kong, and he was arrested because, like, the guy at the beginning of this that was walking out, he got arrested, like, got thrown out of the floor because of his reaction to this shit.
Only dictators, only tyrannies introduce laws like that. Beijing has tightened all the space, all the rooms that we've been enjoying. Freedom of speech, and today, all protests and demonstrations suddenly became illegal.
Hong Kong's chief executive defended the law, saying it would restore stability. A spokesperson for the Chinese foreign ministry.
He defended the law, but then I'm pretty sure he got arrested afterwards anyway.
Promised that it would make Hong Kong more harmonious. But the crackdown could be felt everywhere.
This again is Vice News. I used them earlier. They had that great story earlier about the Uighurs. This is Vice. Vice does some amazing journalism. The problem is it takes forever for it to come out. But you end up getting like the full story later on. What's insane to me? This is from Vice's own channel. This video only has 81,000 views. That's insane. Like, if you want in-depth journalism that takes time and actually gets into the fucking story and what's actually happened and gives you the full scope, Vice is fucking perfect for it. Because they will give you the full scope about what is going on. The problem is, it takes almost a year for this shit to come out. Like, They had this on September 2020. This video was released June 27th of this year. It takes forever for this shit to come out. But Vice does some amazing stuff.
It was supposed to be Hong Kong's election day. Instead, hundreds of protesters took to the streets.
We got a blue flag, we have the tear gas guns out. We're gonna follow the police.
The protest was quickly shut down by the police, who seemed emboldened by the national security law.
So we just had a lot of police fans show up.
Raised assembly. The national security law was announced after Chinese President Xi Jinping's government had backed a brutal crackdown on the pro-democracy and anti-China movement that swept across Hong Kong in 2019. A movement that I reported on.
It's fucking insane what they did to Hong Kong. They quite literally came in and took the shit over. And we haven't heard shit about Hong Kong since. They shut down the internet. They shut down all connection to the outside. And it's just fucking media silence. These reporters end up getting kicked out. And they're doing that to their own people. It's fucking horrifying. Straight up fucking horrifying. And if I wasn't banned in China already, I'm pretty sure this will do it. Because now we're going to talk about the censorship that is China. Not just what they impose on the rest of the world, but what they actually do to their own people. And you may be wondering, why the fuck is Winnie the Pooh up here? That's because, what's his name? Xi Jinping, who is the president of the CCP, who eliminated term limits, so he will quite literally serve until he dies. Ban fucking Winnie the Pooh in his own fucking country. Because people were comparing him to Winnie the Pooh. You Winnie the Pooh looking motherfucker.
Of the president, Xi Jinping. Very particular sort of criticism, actually, although this is not the first time they've done it. They're cracking down on Winnie the Pooh memes. So let's show some of these pictures. You're going to see a very famous one from a couple of years ago of the president and Barack Obama. And look, there's a little bit of a similarity there.
So good.
If you see that in the bottom right, you're going to see that's a social media site from China. Go on to the next one. Again, you can sort of see what they're going for. And then the third one, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But apparently they don't like that. They think that that's disrespectful. And China has a very burgeoning, rapidly growing social media sort of presence. Memes like this are becoming bigger and bigger. And they just think that it doesn't add to national harmony to be calling the president Winnie the Pooh.
You know that you're not living in a free country when and I'm afraid what this says about America, but when you start changing the laws because of the ego of the leader. So the same thing happens in Turkey, where if someone insults Erdogan, sometimes even in a different country. Remember when he got all worked up about the guy in Germany, the comedian in Germany insulting him?
Or they went crazy over the protest in the US when he was here.
Yeah. And so and then in Thailand, if you insult the king, you get 15 years in prison. Dude, take a load off, man.
Yeah.
Relax a little bit. Let somebody make a little bit of fun with. This is not going to devolve in China. You just don't worry.
Winnie the Pooh stands for freedom. Fuck you, and fuck you, you fucking Winnie the Pooh looking motherfucker. Yeah, it also got brought up in the chat. I saw it there. That's not the first time that they've banned a cartoon. Even a wholesome one. They banned Peppa Pig. They banned time travel on TV. You can't time travel in China on TV. They banned Richard Gere. Richard Gere, which we haven't seen a movie from in a long time, and he actually believes it's partly due to the China ban. But the guy from fucking Pretty Woman, is that what it was? Romantic comedy guy? They banned Richard Gere. They banned Harrison Ford, which I'm sure he doesn't give a fuck about. They even banned Katy Perry. No fireworks in China. They banned Avatar the movie in 2D but not 3D to keep poor people from going and seeing the movie and feeling about rising up against a corrupt government. They banned the flower jasmine because Tunisia, where jasmine comes from, wanted independence. They banned reincarnation. They banned reincarnation because the Dalai Lama is critical of China. And if you don't know about the Dalai Lama, basically the Dalai Lama is a title that gets passed on from the Dalai Lama to his reincarnated self, a baby. The current Dalai Lama has been very vocal against China, and so China took over and said that they will appoint who the next Dalai Lama is. They banned ASMR. You know how you like to hear packages opening and that beautiful peel of plastic coming off a screen? They banned ASMR. Because of adult content, which, I mean, give it 6 months and Twitch turned into that, but they banned ASMR. And in probably the most comparable thing to America, they banned hip-hop on TV. Fuck the police. If you want that comparison, there you go. Fuck the police. They banned hip hop on TV. China don't give a fuck. They'll just ban whatever. They have such a stranglehold on media, on what we have, on what we get, that there's nothing logically that we can do about it. So what do we do? Where did I hear about all this? Research, Moose Gal. I did a shit ton of research this week. There's actually a couple of videos you can look up on looking at why they banned certain things. Now, there's people out there like Tim Dillon, Dan Crenshaw. What source? For which information? What they banned? Quite literally the Wikipedia. There's quite a few sources out there that all report the same shit that they banned. You can find it on the Wikipedia. You can find it on the Times News. You can find it several videos about it. There's actually even like a top 10 what did China ban video. Hang on. Yeah, here's one.
And obscene.
10 strange things that are banned in China.
10 strangest things banned in China.
This one's by Alzheimer's 10s. And they have such a stranglehold on what's going on that really, I wouldn't even know if I ever got banned. No, you wouldn't until you showed up and got arrested. But more than likely, old Humble, you probably would because you make alcohol. They have such a stranglehold on media, it's not even funny. They have a stranglehold on the information that gets out. The last thing that I'm going to talk about with this, about China before we actually get into the only solution I really see, may end up getting me banned on YouTube. Who the fuck knows? We'll find out. But that's why I'm saving this for the last portion of this video so that maybe it won't be seen until somebody actually clicks on this shit. COVID. How about using UN power? That won't happen. And I'll explain why that won't happen at the end either. The WHO, whenever the World Health Organization, not who are you, not that WHO, the WHO, World Health Organization, just reiterated China's lies about COVID. That's going back to December 2019. There's been a theory out there for a long time, even at the beginning, but everybody said it was just xenophobic nonsense when Trump said that this is the Wuhan virus. This is, God damn these, what the fuck is this shit flying around in my house? Is my door open? Anyway, that Trump was blaming this on a possible lab leak, and everybody called it xenophobic and bullshit. Trump said a lot of stupid shit. Don't get me wrong. He said a lot of dumbass shit. But the longer this goes and the more information that comes out, the more it's looking like this was a legit lab leak. And here's a video. This is from Breaking Points, which is a news source that I actually do get a lot of news from. I actually watch their show every day that they have it on. I highly encourage you to check them out. It's two people. Sagar Anjetti, I can't say his name right, but he was a White House correspondent. He was an NBC News correspondent. He was a Pentagon correspondent. He was a lot. What's her name? Oh man, I can't remember her name right now. But she's a Democrat. He is a Republican, a more moderate Republican, and she is a Democrat, more on the socialist side, not really socialist side. I would say more liberal, very left leaning. That ran for Congress back in 2016, whenever they lost fucking everything. She's also been a media correspondent, everything else. But they have these takes that they do where they each focus on like one story for a portion of the show and kind of what they're looking at. And this is Media Ignores Bombshell's New Lab Leak Evidence.
New information concerning the circumstances of the origins of COVID comes from a new addendum by the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which has reviewed classified intelligence and included key new facts to our understanding of the timeline. The most stunning headline that comes from the report is this sentence, quote, "The preponderance of evidence suggests SARS-CoV-2 was accidentally released from a Wuhan Institute of Virology laboratory sometime prior to September 12th.
Yeah, I want y'all to listen to this. This comes from the House Foreign Affairs Committee report. This is from fucking Congress. This is a report from Congress.
Origins of COVID comes from a new addendum by the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which has reviewed classified intelligence and included key new facts to our understanding of the timeline. The most stunning headline that comes from the report is this sentence, quote, "The preponderance of evidence suggests SARS-CoV-2 was accidentally released from a Wuhan Institute of Virology laboratory sometime prior to September 12th, 2019. That's right. 2 months before reports indicate that researchers at the lab itself fell so sick they required hospitalization. Now, frankly, this statement stunned me, but it actually makes complete sense when they describe the cover-up and a new set of key facts. The report details how between 2 and 3 a.m. local time in Wuhan, China, the Wuhan Institute of Virology's online public database of samples and virus sequences was taken down mysteriously. That database contained key...
Did y'all hear that? China took down a website mysteriously in the middle of the night that had what samples were on file at the Wuhan Virology Lab.
Information about each sample in the lab, including what type of animal was collected, where it was collected, whether a virus was successfully isolated, and more. Now get this. To date, the database has not yet been put back online. The Chinese's only explanation in January of 2021 is the database was taken down for cyber attacks related to the pandemic, but it was taken down in September, so that doesn't make any sense.
Before the pandemic even started, they took down this website that had what was going on there. And the only reason it was taken down was because of cyber attacks with the pandemic.
Right around this time, geospatial analysis from Harvard and Boston University found that the parking lot volume of all the hospitals in Wuhan had the highest daily volume of cars in the parking lot in September and October of 2019, far before the first reported cases of COVID. Now, that is along with a massive spike in search terms on the Chinese version of Google known as Baidu for the terms cough and diarrhea during those corresponding months. The third stunning data point revealed by the committee concerns the 2019 Military World Games. It was held in Wuhan.
Bet y'all didn't know about this. The military has their own version of the Olympics called the World Games. And this took place in 2019 in Wuhan.
On October 18th, 2019.
A month after
the games are basically
this whole
the
shit
Olympics, but for
closed down.
athletes in the military. There were 9,300 athletes with 109 countries that were represented there. Now, it wasn't noted.
Now, these people that are competing in this are, one, vaccinated for fucking everything because they're in the military, and two, are in the best shape of their life.
At the time, but several athletes at the games came down with what we now recognize as COVID-19 symptoms. The craziest part is this. The athletes remember now that Wuhan looked really weird at the time. One says he got his temperature taken at the airport. They also describe in October that the city of 15 million people looked like it was on lockdown.
These are military personnel. We know what lockdown fucking looks like. Now, you could have just attributed that to the fact that this is China, which is probably what they did. But they then come down with COVID-like symptoms, which happens when you travel. I get a lot of this is circumstantial. This is all highly suspect. But whenever you start adding all these pieces together, something's fishy.
One Canadian athlete described this, quote, "I got very sick 12 days after we arrived. Fever, chills, vomiting, insomnia. On our flight to come home, 60 Canadian athletes on the flight were put in isolation at the back of the plane for the 12-hour flight. We were sick with symptoms ranging from coughs to diarrhea and in between." Later analysis shows that Italy, Brazil, Sweden, and France says that they had patients within their borders who had COVID antibodies from before November 2019.
Before November 2019 had COVID antibodies in their fucking system.
All 4 countries had representatives at the games. All of the patients that had tested never left the country, indicating a common source of community spread within those countries that comes from a single point of origin. That's the circumstantial evidence. You can draw from it what you will. It seems pretty clear to me, personally. But the report doesn't stop there. It also delves into the cover-up on this side of the Pacific. It brings us to a familiar character, Dr. Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance, who is the one who facilitated grant money from Dr. Fauci to the actual Wuhan lab. Daszak's relationship within the Wuhan lab and its top scientists goes all the way back to 2005, where the pair would go into bat caves to collect samples together. Now, the new report uncovers evidence that shows Daszak likely at the tip of the spear of a Chinese influence campaign in February of 2020. He organized a letter with scientific colleagues condemning, quote, conspiracy theories about the origins of the coronavirus. But what we now know is that Daszak organized that letter specifically at the behest of his former colleagues at the Wuhan lab, who asked him for help in dismissing the theory. Now, I encourage you all to go and read this report for yourselves. The link will be down there in the description. But the most important part to me is this. Show me an
Hold on, but you say, I don't think that they were forthcoming with what they knew. They were not forthcoming with what they knew. Period. They had the fucking World Health Organization say that it couldn't be spread by fucking by air, that it wasn't airborne. When they knew it fucking was. Whenever you have all these people showing up in a fucking hospital, when you have all these athletes fucking coming down sick with COVID-like symptoms, when you have COVID antibacteria or whatever the fuck it is, antivirals in bloodstreams prior to November, when really it broke out. Yes, there were some stories about, yes, you were right. There was some stories that came out prior to 11/19. But this shit had to start in September. And it just so happens that's when they took down the fucking website. It just so happens that the majority of people that worked there, they had the highest increase of their fucking hospital visits they had in years. All coming down with the same symptoms. There's too much circumstantial evidence here to not be some crazy ass shit. And then the whole cover up side on this side of the Pacific, with them wanting to say that we weren't doing gain of function research.
An iota of evidence
that we didn't pay for it.
For the natural origin hypothesis, which comes even close to everything I just laid out here. Which bat? How did it fly so far? Who was patient zero? Why would the Chinese government lie about this natural origin virus, but not the one that leaked from a lab? The preponderance of evidence points in a single direction, that the coronavirus leaked from the Wuhan lab sometime in late 2019. As we have stated repeatedly here, that doesn't just indict the Chinese government, it indicts our own for its complicity, and it indicts many of the so-called heroes of the pandemic, like Dr. Fauci. But most importantly, it indicts us all. Let's be honest. Trump and the media tore us apart during the pandemic. Masks, social distancing, restrictions, it all became part of a culture war, instead of something we were collectively trying to get through together. Both Trump and the media were so noxious and hateful towards each other that millions retreated into their corners to fight rather than to get through something. And of course, we can't agree on the facts when we see two different realities. The real tragedy is, I already know this monologue won't make much of a difference. I know most people who watch MSNBC or CNN will never care about the facts. They will think we're all racist for even pointing this out. And I know many right-wingers who purport to care, but don't actually. They just really hate Fauci.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
the real
much.
tragedy of the current media environment. The pandemic cost us $6 trillion globally. It killed millions of people. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are dead. It basically stopped life for nearly 18 months straight. Getting to the bottom of it is vitally important for mankind, so we can avoid any of this in the future. And that was really my goal with this thing, Chris.
Yeah. He actually went on a couple of different rants about this, specifically because of, so what if, like, the major issue that he has with the whole thing is that we were funding this lab and that Fauci has lied about it. Fauci said that we weren't funding this lab, but we were. He approved the funds. We funded gain of function research, quote unquote, which the simplest way to break down what gain of function is taking a virus that is found in animals and giving it the function to be able to transfer to humans and then studying on it. That is quite literally what gain-of-function research is. Now, the specific one that they wanted to talk about that Rand Paul has been harping on, we don't know if that's actually was COVID research, if it was actually COVID-19 research. So there's no way of saying that Fauci funded COVID-19. No way of saying that. What we can say is that U.S. taxpayer dollars went to the Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research, and that this lab had been cited repeatedly for their unsecure handling of animals and testing of people who worked there. That we do know. And it just so happens is right there in Wuhan. Could this have been natural transmission? Yes. Is it likely? With how censoring and not forthcoming and how much money is involved and all of that for that to be the truth? Probably not. It probably was probably leaked from a lab, and we probably will never fucking know because it's become too much of a political issue. So what the fuck do we do? And there's not much else to talk about with COVID because it's practically already over. Quote unquote. What do we do? I think we're headed for a war. Personally. I think that is where we are headed. No, it's not over. I mean, it practically is. Pfizer just got the FDA approval. Over half the country is vaccinated. 30% of people who are unvaccinated said that they would get the vaccination if it received FDA approval, which this is the most scrutinized virus for FDA approval. And if you want proof of that, millions of people have been vaccinated and they have more samples now than they ever did before. So my personal opinion, go get your fucking vaccine. If you don't want to, that's on you. End of story as far as the vaccine goes. Delta's still out there? Yes, Delta's still out there, but if you have the vaccine, your symptoms are way less. Your chances of being hospitalized are even less than they are of getting COVID without the vaccine. Like even way less. Like point percentages, not just 1%, like point percentages. And your chances of death are even lower than that. Heart disease killed more people than COVID did last year. It's practically over. We will not go on another lockdown. There'll be a war over that shit. It's going to be, what we're going to end up dealing with now is going to be another fucking flu. Bad for old people. That's really what it's going to be. Okay, but it's still serious? No. I'd argue the point of your chances of getting COVID even before the vaccine were only 2%. Sorry, your chances of dying from getting COVID before the vaccine were 2%. You can disagree with me, but it's factually true. Look at the statistics. Your chances of dying from COVID without a vaccine, 2%. The biggest issue that happens is it aggravates already having issues. If you already have heart disease, it's going to aggravate it. If you already have health issues, it's going to aggravate it. If you don't get enough sun, you don't get enough vitamin D, it's going to aggravate it. If you don't have the right nutrients in your body, it's going to make that worse. It's practically over. It's going to be another fucking flu. Flu kills a lot of people every year, too. It sucks. That's what it is. A COVID virus is the same thing as a cold. The cold is a COVID virus. Or a coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. So what can we do? What are we doing? Currently, we're not doing fucking shit. Biden's talked on China a couple of times, but he hadn't done anything. He kind of left in place what Trump did, which is more than anybody else has done. Honestly, I think we're headed for a war. I honestly do. I honestly think that is exactly where we are headed, is for a war with China. Buscal, you asked earlier, why not use the UN power? The problem is there are 3 countries in the world that have veto power in the UN. United States, Russia, and China. Those 3 countries, if any bill comes to the floor of the UN, have veto power. That's why there's been no UN sanctions against Russia. That's why there's been no UN sanctions against the US. That's why there's been no UN sanctions against China, because they can immediately veto anything that comes to the UN. That's why you're not going to get a global agreement from the UN to fight China. NATO is a different story. China isn't part of NATO. NATO could, but even then, Russia's not part of NATO. Russia will still work with China. They're neighbors, after all. War is coming. That's the only way I see this actually playing out. And the reason that I say war is coming is not because the U.S. isn't going to try and do other things. Like, we try to fight economically and we're not good at it because we don't fucking make anything here. Hi. Australia is currently in a trade war with China, and it's not going well for Australia. Are you wanting attention? Come here. You just want attention. Okay. I do think war is probably coming. And the reason that it'll come is because America won't want to give up its superpower. And the only way that we'll keep it is by winning a war with China. Americans won't stand for another war? You know, we won't really have much of an option. Russia and China are getting closer together. They are. And both are against the U.S. Yes, they are. What would help America in that situation would be Europe and Canada. It would be NATO. NATO is what would help America in that situation. So we would quite literally be looking at another world war. It'd be World War III. The Middle East would go to Russia and China. US, Canada, Europe would be on a side. Africa would probably be kind of drawn in a couple of different ways. South America would practically go US. Practically, I would say. There'd be parts of it that wouldn't, like Venezuela would go China, Russia. Too much of our money from federal government needs to go back to citizens. I don't see a war coming. Well, then you're blind. That's the only way that this is going to end. A war is coming. I'm not saying it's happening like next year. But it's coming. The U.S. will not give up its superpower status easily. And if you think that the money from the federal government needs to go back to its citizens, I agree with you. Is that going to happen? No. Because the government doesn't give back what it's taken. You ever gotten one of your freedoms back? No, that didn't happen. A war is coming with China. And Jason, you're absolutely right. War is coming because China wants to be the world's only superpower. You're absolutely right. U.S. may not want war. China wants war. China wants to be the superpower. And the only way you get to be a superpower is by taking over the other one. Or beating the other one. The way that the U.S. got to be a superpower is by saving China. And by beating the Russians. Yes, Kilo, they are pretty open about wanting war with the U.S. Absolutely. Oh, no. Moose Scout, you're thinking that we would start the war. No. We aren't going to be the ones who start it. We are not going to be the ones to start the war. It'll be China who starts it. I don't know if China will send troops here. That would be actually considered a death sentence in a lot of cases. I actually have a video about that. We can actually watch this one. We'll end on this video. I'm fine with that. It's a little bit of a longer one, but this is China versus the United States. Who would win?
Terry, to see how they match up. It's worth both country subscription for your way to victory right now. In the year 2020, the U.S. is still the world's sole superpower, but China is not far behind. Both nations have huge amounts of influence across the globe and economies that generate enormous wealth. But what about their militaries? If China and the United States were to go to war, who would have the advantage? In this military comparison, we're pitting China's People's Liberation Army against the United States military to see how they match up. After we lay out the capabilities of each, we'll decide who will win in an all-out war. Bear in mind that both of these militaries are always changing, so it's important to keep an eye on the future. In the end, it'll all come down to which country has the stronger and smarter military. Let's see if you...
Stronger and smarter military and better allies. That is what it's going to come down to. This does not include allies. This just pits them 1v1. There will always be allies involved in any war from now on. I'm letting y'all know that right now. There will always be allies involved in any war from now on.
You come to the same conclusion we do of who would win in a war between China and the United States of America. In terms of resources, China and the US are both well equipped to support their militaries during the war. It's well known that the United States spends more money than any other country on its military. The most recent military...
And this is going back to Muscow's point about the money needs to come back to its people. That's not fucking happening. They actually made the budget bigger. They knew that the war in Afghanistan was ending this year, and they made the budget bigger for the military defense budget. Just saying.
Military budget for the United States was around $721 billion. That's more than many countries' entire GDP. On the other hand, China's military budget is around $178 billion. Notice the huge contrast between the two nations' military spending. Just in pure spending, the United States beats China. But just because a country spends a lot of money does not mean they have the better military equipment or personnel.
A lot of that money does go to contractors, absolutely. But most of our contractors come from our quite literal armors. You know, like they're the ones who actually give us all the equipment.
Although the United States invests more money in their military, China leads with a different resource: manpower. If all-out war happened, the ability to manufacture weapons and replenish casualties would be vital. The current population of the United States is just over 330 million people. The population of China, around 1.5 billion people. Of course,
majority of them are men because of their one-child policy that they had for several years. They've changed that policy since, but because of that one-child policy, there's actually a massive population of unwed men in China. A massive population of them that are all military age.
Not everyone in each population would be able to fight or work in factories, but just in terms of people, China vastly outnumbers the US. This brings us to the active number of military personnel in each country. Who has the bigger military? Well, it should come as no surprise that the number of soldiers in China's military is much larger than the United States.
It is,
With
a
more
lot.
people in the country, there are more people in the military. In fact, the number of military personnel in China is almost double the amount of military personnel in the United States. The U.S. military consists of around 1.3 million personnel on active duty. The People's Liberation Army has just over 2 million military personnel.
Double. But here's the thing, the other thing that comes with this. We don't have the draft. We would have to immediately reinstate the draft. Immediately.
If war broke out between the two countries, the United States would need to immediately reinstate the draft. Just to come close to matching the number of military personnel the People's Liberation Army currently has. Due to the immense size of the Pacific Ocean, a war between China and the US would most likely not start on land. So let's first look at the Air Force capabilities of each nation and how they stack up against one another.
This is where we would probably win. This is how the US wins every battle that it's been in. I say battle, not war, because, well, okay, the war portion, we actually win. The police actions is what we lose. We win the war part. We lose the police actions. Our air superiority on sea and Air Force is unmatched.
The total number of military aircraft the United States has is around 5,370. China's Air Force contains about 3,010 planes.
See, we even beat them there.
These numbers are always fluctuating as new planes are built and old aircraft are retired. Right now, the Chinese military is building and purchasing.
Inactive ready reserve first? Yes, that would be the first ones to be called up. All of National Guard would immediately be called up. All of reserve would be called up. All of inactive reserve, which are people who retired from the military within 4 years, would be called up immediately.
Aircraft much faster than the U.S.
Unless you were medically discharged. If you were medically discharged, you are not part of inactive reserve, for those that are wondering. But yes, that there is a clause whenever you join the military that for 4 years after you get out of the military, you are considered inactive reserve. You could be called back at any time. Those would be the first ones called back. All reservist members would be immediately activated. All National Guard members would be immediately activated. And all inactive reserve members would be immediately activated. After that, it'd be the draft.
It's estimated that in a few years, the number of aircraft between the two nations will be comparable. But what about the types of aircraft? Which country has better fighter planes, bombers, and transports? The United States has a vast array of aircraft at their disposal, the most impressive of which are the F-35 Lightning, F-22 Raptor.
Okay, I was about to say, if you don't mention the Raptor, what the fuck are you talking about? That Lightning is a badass one, but the Raptor's even better.
And F-15 Eagle.
And the F-15, absolutely.
Help the US maintain air superiority. However, China has its own stealth fighter in
the
J-20, although it's only available in extremely low numbers and is generally considered.
By extremely low numbers, they mean like less than 10.
A poor man's version of the American F-35.
It is.
In the air, the American military still retains a lethal advantage over the Chinese military with more sophisticated avionics, a much larger fleet of fifth-generation aircraft, and a far greater number of support aircraft such as tankers and AWACS platforms. American pilots also train on average 20 to 30 hours more per year than their Chinese counterparts.
That 20 to 30 hours per year is a big number whenever it comes to flying. That is a massive number.
And in more realistic scenarios than the Chinese. As we look at other aspects of the Air Force in each country, we find that larger aircraft such as bombers and transports are not equal. The United States has a clear advantage. There are two reasons for this. The first is because the U.S. just has more aircraft. The second reason is because a lot of money being pumped into the United States military goes to research and development each year.
So everybody knows the Hercules, right? That's actually what they're depicting right there is the Hercules. The C-130. C-130 rolling down the strip. That is actually tiny compared to what we have now. McNeil Entertainment. So you are saying that a certain YouTuber, if retired, can say anything about our president until they get called back? Yes. If we were to go to war, he can totally say whatever the fuck he wants once he's out. Once he gets that DD-214 blanket, he's out. But if he gets recalled, he is technically back then being active duty and can't again. But they're depicting the C-130s here. That thing's tiny compared to what we have now. Now we have C-5s, which are fucking massive. I mean, they are fucking massive. You can fit a C-130 without the wings inside of a C-5. A good portion of the wings, but like the last two engines won't be able to. These two won't be able to fit in there. And then you have the C-17, which is also fucking ridiculous. But a C-5 is practically a flying football field. Thing is huge.
The United States aircrafts are up to date.
Larger aircrafts aren't useful. Oh, they are extremely useful. Extremely useful. C-17s are amazing. Oh yeah, no, I wasn't complaining about them at all. No, I'm saying like they're depicting the C-130 there. Our shit's even bigger than the C-130 now. The transportation aspects of the C-17 and the C-5 are insane. They are absolutely insane. And China doesn't have anything that compares to that.
While the Chinese Air Force is still working with functional but older models, you don't need to look much further than the United States' Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, Northrop B-2 Spirit, and Rockwell B-1 Lancer to show that in terms of dominating ground targets from the air, the U.S. has the advantage.
And those are just our bombers.
Other than the skies.
3 of our bombers. Only 3 of our bombers. We have more than just those.
The next most important military technology in a war between China and the US would be the Navy. Controlling the oceans in this conflict would be vital for success. One of the most important ships in a naval arsenal would be the aircraft carrier. The floating fortresses would be crucial to launching airstrikes on the opposing country. Currently, the United States is the world leader in aircraft carriers. The US has 11 active aircraft carriers, while China only has 2, and only one of those is currently rated as combat ready.
There you go. Their Navy is not bigger. Their Navy is not bigger at all. Their Navy is tiny. I know the military budget was bigger. Doesn't that go to contractors? I want a separate bill only for money for our troops. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in Moscow. It's not. I mean, I would love for that to happen, but that's not going to be the case at all.
This clearly puts dominance of the ocean in favor of the United States military. But what about other warships? If China could destroy the U.S. aircraft carriers, would they have the advantage?
They
the
would.
United States currently has around 430 naval ships on active and reserve duty. However, only about 300 of those ships are currently able to deploy at a moment's notice. If war broke out between China and the United States right now, China would have a fleet of 335 ships to call upon. But just like the case for the U.S., not every ship would be available for combat, with about 20% on each side being currently undergoing maintenance, retrofit, or rest and relaxation for its crews.
So they have more ships than us, but we have more aircraft carriers that would sink their ships before they ever even, and we also have subs. We have more subs as well, though the Chinese have quite a few of those too.
Without eliminating the U.S.'s aircraft carrier fleet, China would stand no chance of victory in the Pacific if all-out conflict took place. Yet, even with American carriers out of action, China would be extremely hard-pressed to deal with the American submarine fleet. While it has its own fleet of 74 subs versus the U.S.'s 66, China severely lacks in anti-submarine warfare assets and would be ill-equipped to take on America's silent surge.
So China's submarines have 66, but theirs are also believed to not be nuclear power. A lot of theirs are not nuclear power. That whole sub fleet right there, I want to say that like 1/3 of it is diesel. Which if you've ever seen the movie Periscope Down or Periscope Up, Periscope Down, Periscope Up, whatever it is, that's a comedic movie about a diesel sub taking on the nuclear naval or nuclear submarine of the U.S. It's actually a war game. It's a comedy. Take that with a grain of salt. Our U.S. submarines are absolutely insane. I have a buddy who actually was a submariner, submariner, what do they want to call them? And the technology on subs is scary, absolutely scary.
Service. On the American side, a disastrous performance by its own anti-submarine warfare assets during exercises in the early 2000s revealed a terrible crumbling of the American Navy's capability to wage anti-submarine warfare after the end of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Since then, and with the help of ultra-silent diesel submarines from partner nations, the U.S. has undertaken great steps to once again bolster its ASW capabilities and is believed to be well prepared to face any enemy fleet as the world prepares for great power competitions once again.
Yeah, that we got embarrassed in a war game back, when was that? Like, and they said it. We got like seriously embarrassed with our anti-submarine tactics. But that was a long time ago. And since then, a lot of military budget has gone into that.
On the American side, a disastrous performance by its own anti-submarine warfare assets during exercises in the early 2000s revealed a terrible crumbling of the American Navy's capability to wage anti-submarine warfare after the end of the Cold War. Since then, and with the help of ultra-silent diesel submarines from partner nations, the U.S. has undertaken great steps to once again bolster its ASW capabilities and is believed to be well prepared to face any enemy fleet as the world prepares for great power competitions once again.
This is the biggest concern that I would have with a World War III situation, nuclear war. I mean, we have enough nukes to destroy the world like 5 times over just ourselves, but that would be the biggest concern.
For now, the U.S. fleet remains supreme, but it's divided between responsibilities around the world, while China can focus the entirety of its efforts in fighting America's Pacific Fleet alone. With a rapidly modernizing fleet and more sophisticated shipbuilding efforts, China looks set to close the gap between itself and the US in the approaching decades. What would happen if the war made its way to land, though? Obviously, it would depend on where the war was being fought. The nation battling on their home turf would ultimately have the advantage.
And more than likely, we would be fighting on our home turf, or it'd be in Africa. We'd be looking at like a World War III type situation here. The U.S. is going to do everything in its power not to have to fight on our own soil. That is one of our biggest things. We don't want to fight on our own soil. We would win for sure, but we don't want to fight on our own soil. That is one of the major components of the military. We don't want to fight on our own soil because we don't want to put our people through the hells of war. That's one of our biggest things with the military. We don't want to fight on our own soil. So what I think would end up happening if this was to go to like straight up war, like we're fighting China, it would require China invading the U.S. in some form or fashion. Or attacking one of our strategic partners. Whether that be, or one of our bases, something like that. In one of our strategic places. And then that would become the battleground, if that makes sense.
Because of their ability to replenish land forces more easily, let's take location out of the equation and just compare the land-based military capabilities of each nation. We know that in terms of soldiers, China outnumbers the US. We also know that if soldier numbers need to be replenished, there are many more people to choose from in China than in the US.
100%.
Basically, if the two countries went to war using only soldiers, the United States would eventually succumb to the large number of available manpower China has. That being said, this is not how wars are fought anymore. Instead, land battles can be won using machinery, such as tanks. The United States has a tank arsenal of around 8,010 vehicles. The U.S. is
all geared by Northrop Grumman.
His main battle tank is the legendary M1 Abrams, of which not a single one has been lost to enemy action yet.
That's an important part. The M1 Abrams is able to go like 60 miles an hour over sand. And we have not lost a single one in enemy action ever.
If deployed, the United States tank army would be a devastating force. It would plow through anything in its path. China has fewer tanks at around 6,560, and just under half of those are first-generation tanks dating back to the early Cold War era.
Yeah, first-generation tanks. They say early Cold War. That means that they were made right after World War II. First-generation tanks.
Around 2,360 of the Chinese tanks are Type 59s. These tanks were produced in the 50s and 60s. They're antiquated and currently retired, but still kept in reserve. This means that the tank force of China is actually much smaller than the United States.
Tiny.
The U.S. pours billions of dollars into upgrading their tanks with state-of-the-art equipment.
All the time.
Keeping their forces modernized. Clearly, the United States would decimate China in a tank battle. In today's day and age, battles are rarely fought only on the ground. At some point, they may not even be fought on the planet. Recently, the United States has implemented a new branch of the military, Space Force. Space Force's missions is to organize, train, and equip Space Forces in order to protect U.S. and allied interests in space and to provide space capabilities to the Joint Force. It is clear that the United States is moving toward militarizing this new horizon. But is China? Recent reports have shown that China has been rapidly expanding its space program. They were the third country to launch a human into space behind the former Soviet Union, now Russia, and the United States. China completed this feat back in 2003 and has since ramped up their space program. They are the first and only country to put a rover on the far side of the moon, where they've made several discoveries. China has also been launching more and more satellites and military spacecraft into space in recent years. It's estimated that China has more than 320 satellites. 105 of them are military in nature. The United States has around 123 military satellites, even though the U.S. has been in space much longer than China.
Yeah.
It would seem that the breakthroughs at the China
That's part of why they made the Space Force, was because we want to be able to have more military satellites. Because we saw China doing that. Yes, we're on China. You've missed it. We're almost at the end here.
National Space Administration have greatly sped up the military satellite capabilities of the country. The budget for NASA in the United States has been cut year after year, almost immediately after they put the first man on the moon.
But what we're doing with that is it's gone into civilian side. That's part of what Elon Musk and all that. The budget for NASA has decreased, but that's part of why we have the Space Force. That's also part of why, which is now basically NASA's getting part of that military budget because Space Force also works with NASA. So, I mean, that's not 100% true here. We're trying to catch back up with China as far as space.
China's space program, on the other hand, seems to be getting an influx of money each year from the government. How long until the research and development of China's engineers and space scientists surpass the U.S.? In space, the country with the best technology and most knowledge of the environment will be victorious in battle. If the United States continues to fall behind in space exploration, they will not stand a chance in a space war with China. This brings us to our last comparison between the two countries, a comparison that has no winner. Instead, everyone loses. We're talking about nuclear weapons. As of right now, China has...
Oh yeah, China's way ahead of Russia. Big time.
An estimated total of 320 nuclear warheads. That might seem like a lot, but it is nothing compared to the amount of nuclear weapons the United States has stockpiled. The United States has about 6,300.
Jesus Christ, I didn't even know that.
Under its...
We only have 300. China only has 320? Estimated. That's estimated. I'm willing to bet they're in the thousands now, or at least multiple hundreds. More than 300. They're probably close to 1,000.
Control. 2,000 of those nukes are awaiting to be dismantled and disposed of. However, if nuclear war broke out between China and the U.S., neither country would get a chance to use all their nuclear weapons. The human race would be annihilated long before then.
Yeah.
So it's probably in China's and the United States' and the entire world's best interest that nuclear war never comes.
Yeah.
Although the United States has a slight military advantage over China, we can't underestimate how far China's military has come in a relatively short amount of time. Also, the vast amount of manpower could be enough to allow China to hold out for a long time, slowly depleting the United States' resources.
Very
However,
possibly.
the reason we believe that the United States would win a war with China is because of experience. The United States has a lot more military experience than China. This means that the leaders of the military have seen combat and know what works and what doesn't. The U.S. has been at war almost perpetually in one form or another since World War II, most recently in the Middle East. Since the beginning of Desert Storm in 1991, the United States has maintained a military presence in the Middle East. In fact, the United States has been fighting in Afghanistan for almost 18 years. This means military personnel and leaders have constantly been gaining skills and experience in the art of war. China, on the other hand, has not fought in a war in over 40 years.
They haven't fought in a war, but they have aided in a lot of ways. Are we ever not at war? That's true. No, we technically, the thing that's going to help the U.S. in this, the biggest thing that would help the U.S. in this is quite literally the fact that we have we have multiple bases on every single continent, all with military capabilities. Every single one has an airfield. Every single one has an air force. Every single one has soldiers. Every single one has armories. Every single one has tanks. Like we have shit fucking everywhere. Every fucking where. I think the only place we don't have a base is China and Russia. Like we have a base practically fucking everywhere and within striking distance of everywhere in the world. That is the thing that would help us.
Last war they fought in was in 1979 when China invaded Vietnam. Vietnam had just come out of its own civil war and had gained much experience during that time. The small country was able to humiliate the Chinese military, forcing them out of their country after only 3 weeks. It seems that experience can outweigh sheer numbers during wartime.
Yeah, we got our ass kicked by the Vietnamese. Well, we got our ass kicked by the police action with the Vietnamese. And then the Vietnamese turned around and whooped up on China in 3 weeks.
It is for this reason that we believe the United States would win a war with China if it were fought today. However, and some of you might have already seen this coming, if China continues to expand and upgrade their military as they have been doing in recent years, it will not be long before their military strength surpasses the United States. If this happens, it's a very real possibility that China would win a war against the United States in the future. Their drive to update their machinery and technology can be seen in their space program and the expansion of their military. Within the next decade, we at the Infographics Show may need to make a new video to reevaluate this military comparison between China and the United States, with the winner being the People's Liberation Army of China. Thanks to our sponsor, Conflict.
Yeah. So that's part of why I say that if a war is going to happen, it'll be the U.S. will want to have it happen before too terribly long. Has China ever sustained a war out of their country? No, they have not. But this Chinese government is different than what they faced prior, if that makes sense. The first time that they really had a fight, or really the first and only time that they had a fight outside of their own country was Vietnam. And they lost very quickly. That was really the part of that was them being young is really a good way of looking at it, because the CCP was very young then, extremely young then. That is one of their major downfalls. They don't have experience anywhere else in the world. They also don't have bases anywhere else in the world. Like they aren't like the US whenever it comes to that. As far as experience, the US will win hands down. Manpower is the biggest thing that they have going for them, and they are dumping a shit ton of money into their military power. They are dumping a shit ton of money into their military power. So Mike is mixed. Do you think things will blow up in Afghanistan? We will go back there. No, I don't. I think Afghanistan is going to become an ally of China and Russia. That's going to be their very first puppet. It'll be one of them. They'll start with Taiwan. They'll start with Taiwan and Japan. Because China's been itching to get back at Japan for World War II. And then China already has a puppet in North Korea. Like that's the way that North Korea sustains any sort of power, really, is one, through starving their people, and two, they're subsidized by China. We'll talk about Korea probably in about 2 weeks. But North Korea did not even take Kim Jong-un, or the newest, whatever the fuck his name is, the newest Kim Jong, seriously until he got that meeting with Trump. And then for the first time, Kim Jong was actually allowed into China and was briefed before he ever even went and talked to Trump. So that really, it'll be North Korea. Practically, like, if we're going to talk about where in the world we'd be looking at here. God damn it. Oh, it's a clickable image. I don't want that. China would have Mongolia. They are not on good terms with India. India would actually be probably our ally. China and India have actually been fighting a lot recently. They may get Vietnam. They'll definitely get North Korea. They'll get Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. They'll probably pretty much take over the Middle East. Iran will side with China because they're fighting the Americans. Saudi Arabia will be interesting. They'll probably get Egypt. They'll get Sudan. They'll get Libya, Chad. They'll get like the northeast portion of Africa. We'll probably get the southern portion and possibly the western portion. We'll have all of Europe. All of Europe. We'll have all of it. They'll get Venezuela, possibly Argentina. We will probably have Brazil, Peru, Colombia. They'll have Venezuela. We'll have Mexico, Canada, United States. Russia would be a tricky one. Russia's not as much of a superpower as people think it is. It is getting there, but its stuff is a lot more and other shit. Russia always does land on their feet because you can't beat Russia in the winter. That's why. It's like Afghanistan. Nobody takes over in Afghanistan because the fucking mountains. Russia tried it and failed. We tried it and won, but we were just a stopgap. As soon as we left, it went right back to what it fucking was. That's really that's the main issue with Afghanistan. Like if we would have gone to war with fucking, like, have people actually looked at where Afghanistan and Iraq are? Do y'all know where those are on the map? They're quite literally to the left and right of Iran. That's who the main target really should have been. But that's just me. But Russia would be the oddball in the mix. If Russia goes China, that's another big power. If Russia decides to go with Europe, which they probably will because they want to keep up that whole democracy thing, but we really won't trust them, they're still not going to be much of a help. If anything, it'd be kind of funny because, like, all of Russia, for how big Russia is, all of Russia, like where the majority of the people are close to Europe. Like above China, it's just fucking tundra. So, like, that's not like a land war type situation, you know? Like, it's all just fucking tundra up there. Australia would also be on our side as well. The Philippines would be on our side. That whole area. So, I don't know. I would think that we would win overall. One, because of just how our shit is, just how it's set up. But if that doesn't happen soon, we're fucked. Right now, we're in an economic war and we're losing. Big time. Like I've covered tonight. And there's really no way for us to fight that economic war short of start making our own shit here again. But any questions from the chat? I think India would rough them up. India would fuck them up. India has fucked them up. India and China, I think it was like last year, got in a fight over that border, and they were quite literally fighting hand to hand, and India fucked them up. Oh, I know what we can do when push up comes to shove. But I don't know if that's going to happen. One of the benefits that China has over us is this guy is in power for the rest of his fucking life. Winnie the Pooh looking motherfucker. Whereas we're so concerned about our internal squabbles and it changes every 4 to 8 years. Do I want it to go to war? No. Do I think it's going that way? Yes. Dictator for life is not a benefit? Okay, well, okay. It's a benefit because they don't have internal squabbles. They don't. We're too concerned about what fucking Trump is saying and what Biden is forgetting that we can't fucking get on the same page whenever it comes to fucking China. We can't get on the same page when it comes to fucking masks or vaccines. I wonder who takes over China if their dictator dies. Well, it'd be somebody within the party. That doesn't make them stronger. I disagree. They are very guided at defeating the West. Yeah, there Noah, my brother, right there. My brother in the chat. When you can have a 15-year plan rather than a year by year, that's a benefit. 100%. My brother actually studied China for a while. Whenever it was your bachelor's degree, right, Noah? It was for your bachelor's degree. You were doing political science, and I reached out to him before I did this live. I was like, hey, you still researching China? But that was one thing that he even brought up. It was like, yeah, they have like a 20-year plan. They have a 20-year plan versus like a 4-year plan. During my term, I'm going to do this. No, that shit doesn't happen. It's a 20-year plan, 15-year plan. They don't fuck around. Yeah, South Asia, really, but obviously China. Yeah, big player. Big player. But that's why it's a benefit. I'm not saying it's a benefit because they have a dictator. No, I'm saying it's a benefit because they can have a 15-year plan. They can have their stuff isn't based on a year-to-year issue. It's based on long-term. They can actually have long-term goals for the country that actually get put in place. And I mean, this guy getting rid of fucking terms does that. China is not stronger than the U.S. That's pure filler. I didn't say they're stronger. Not militarily. Not in world influence. I don't think that at all. They're not a superpower yet. They're catching up, but they're not a superpower yet. Where they are kicking our ass is economically. They are kicking our ass economically. Whenever they can have a trade war with Australia and the United States, and they can have U.S. companies bending over backwards to apologize to them for the almighty dollar, they're kicking our ass economically. 100% they're kicking our ass economically. When all we can do is put sanctions on them that only we enforce, nobody else is, that's a problem. Pure fertilizer. Bullshit. I got you. Olemo says, dictator for life do not mean that you'll have a 15-year plan. We used to have long-term plans before our party quit governing. If you don't think China doesn't have a long-term plan, you need to look at the way that they incorporated a capitalistic system while still maintaining communistic control. You need to look at how much money they're dumping into space You need to look into how much money they've dumped into their military and to research. You need to look into their surveillance systems. They have 15-year plans. I'm sorry, that shit does not pop up overnight. It does not pop up overnight. I'm not saying that they're stronger, old humble. I'm saying that they're kicking our ass economically. And that if it came to war, we'd probably win. But that's only currently. They're kicking our ass economically. Whenever 20%, 23% of our imports come from China, that is the largest piece of the fucking pie. And whenever 23%, those 23% are all the tiny items, the things that make up bigger items. So that's not saying that what they import to Europe or Africa or Australia or South America that then we get imported to us. Those tiny items are being used to make shit there, and then it's imported to us. All that shit would break down. China needs us more than we need them. Right now. It'd take a few years to move supply lines, but we'd make another China. And then what are we going to do during that time? That would be the perfect time to attack us because we would be immediately in a depression. Immediately. The road project for their exports, they are planned out 25 years. They are a growing kid getting bigger and stronger and total control of their people. Absolutely. They were able to practically, like, oh my God. Hold on, but you remember how long it took us to fucking have 290? I'm pretty sure 35 has been worked on my entire life. They built, in a matter of a year, like a 200-mile bridge or like a 200-mile road. It didn't have proper drainage, but it's a fucking road. 200 miles in like a year. It's a kid that's getting bigger. It's getting stronger. It is a concern. There, Noah just said it. The China's Belt and Road Initiative is meant to cut the U.S. out of global economics and build a global economy around them, which it practically is. They make all the small shit that makes all the other bigger shit work. Breaking it down Barney style for you. Their number one producer, I want to say, was chips, or the boards for chips, rather. That was our number one import from them in 2018. When you have billions of people with shovels, yeah. Yeah. U.S. goods imported from China totaled $539.5 billion in 2018, up 6.7% from 2017, up 59% from 2008, and up 427% from 2001. The top 4 imports from China: integrated circuits, microassemblies. That's the number 1. Number 2 was crude oil. Number 3 was iron ores and concentrates. And number 4 was petroleum gases. Their number 1 by a big margin was integrated circuits and microassemblies. These are the tiny things that make all of our other shit work. And now they're building the infrastructure to connect Germany to Vietnam, Mongolia to South Africa, all running through China via rail and waterways. Yeah. China's Belt and Road Initiative is a 20th century solution to a 21st century idea. It's not the future. I disagree. I completely disagree. Whenever you make everything go through China, they're in control. We're halfway around the world. They're actually connected to all those countries. It's cheaper to move shit by rail than it is to fly it. It's cheaper to move shit by road than it is to fly it. And whenever you have slave labor to fucking load all this shit and do everything, they'll be able to do it. It's not a matter of being an old idea. It's that they're throwing so much money at it, it's still worthwhile for other countries to buy in. Yeah. Whenever you have that much money and you're throwing it at it, they're going to buy into it. And they're going to make it cheap because that's also the benefit of China. They're going to make it cheap. That's why all companies have been moving all their shit over to fucking China. That's why Apple, Nike, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Coca-Cola, Budweiser, Adidas, fucking all sorts of other places make their shit in China. It's cheaper. If it all runs through China, they win. Doesn't matter if it's road, air, rail, doesn't matter. It's cheaper, plus they're giving you money. That's the problem. Exactly. No, just yeah. They're getting Pakistan, Nigeria, Egypt, anything. Yeah, they're able to build these systems there, and all roads lead to China. Everything that goes through China is going to end up fucking us up. I don't think China, when China will actually attack, like actually start a war, a physical war, will be once they're ready to. Honestly. And they'll be able to do it where they basically just shut off supply to the U.S. and that's it. We immediately go into a depression. We're fucked. Or limping along. And then they invade. I mean, that's the smart way of doing it. Is it going to work out exactly that way? No. We'll export nuclear weapons. No, we won't. No, we won't. Because then we're officially the bad guy at that point. They will win and not even fire a shot. Stop exports and we crash. Absolutely. If they do that now, we're fucked. If they do that now, we're fucked. So, Jason, that whole calling in our debt thing actually is not a massive concern. And that was something I honestly, I was concerned about that whole shit. Until I got really involved in the stock market. And then I realized, oh, that's kind of bullshit. So that one I'm not worried about. If you think we won't go nuclear with China, you're fooling yourself. Considering that we have 6,000, they have at least 300. If we go nuclear, they go nuclear, we're fucked. Everybody's fucked. Everybody's fucked. We won't go nuclear. We won't. We'll go nuclear if we're already at war and we've already stopped them from being able to go nuclear. Yeah, we'll go nuclear at that point. But we won't go nuclear immediately. No, that ain't going to be our first answer. It won't be. Unless we have Donald Trump on the button. Maybe then we will. Calling our debt is as likely to happen as cutting off American supply lines. That's not true. That's not true. They can't. They actually can't call in our debt. That's the thing. That's a very convoluted system right there. But they could cut off supply lines like they have done to American companies. Like they have done to American companies. They made H&M disappear off the fucking map. Like that's not a problem. They can do that shit. China doesn't have stockholders. China doesn't have a free traded market. They don't have a stock market like we do. Chinese companies that have shareholders and everything else are actually done through fuck, I didn't want to have to talk about all the stock market shit because I'm not well versed in it, but I know enough of it than that. No, you don't own Chinese stock. What you own is a representative that is in another company, that is in another country that owns shares of that stock. You do not own Chinese stock. You don't. You own a representative of what that stock would be in China. Like, I have stock in the Tesla of China. It's not actually a publicly traded company. It is still a Chinese-owned company. Yeah, you can have stock in Russia. Russia does actually have publicly traded company. Yeah, I can't remember the name of them. I bought them because they're actually probably going to do pretty well. But it's who the Tesla is in China. It's basically their EV company, like their major EV player, the one that'll end up being like Tesla in China. I have stock in that company, company. China needs a slowly declining U.S. A major economic or military attack on the U.S. is unnecessary for them and has too much risk of backfiring. If they just keep increasing their military and sit still, they'll replace the U.S. in due time, i.e. 100-ish years. I think it'll be faster than that, Noah. There's talk that the military will be up to snuff within probably a decade or two. And then economically, that they'll practically surpass us. They already have surpassed us in a lot of ways before that. Chinese companies are really tricky to actually get stock in. I have stock, quote unquote, in a Chinese company, but that's not the case. They're more likely to have a population collapse in that time. I don't know. They are fighting a trade war with Australia right now too. The biggest, if there's a trade war that is legit hurting China right now, but they're limping through, is the Australian one, because China does have iron resources and everything else, but it's not as pure as what Australia has. And that's a trade war that they currently have. But at least 100 years, I would bet 30 with another 20 of people being wishy-washy about who's in charge. I agree. So 50 years max. Yeah. You still don't see war with China occurring. If it happens, it'll be on China's time. Or the U.S. just will want to fucking stage something. There's a reason they changed the one-child policy. Yes, that's true. There's also a reason why human trafficking to China is a massive thing. Trump had a trade war. I think China was part of that. Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, he was putting tariffs on their shit. Maybe want to consider picking up some stock from that Chipco in Taiwan. I'm in NVIDIA. NVIDIA is fucking amazing right now. And that is one thing that is going really well. I am invested in a lot of chip manufacturers. I have a couple of different ones spread out. I do like them. Chip manufacturers are great to be invested in, especially right now. Shit. Damn, I've been going longer than I was last time. Shit. All the foreign stocks are rolling right now? Yeah, pretty much. But guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. Next week, I'll let y'all know what we'll be discussing. It'll be something on the home front. That's kind of the way that I want to do these rants. I want to go kind of back and forth between something on the home front, something globally, something on the home front, something globally, something on the home front, something globally. It's kind of how I want to roll. Just how all this going. I do think that things on the home front are more important because they're on the home front. They're close to home. But I do want to have all of that kind of back and forth. But I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit that like button for me. If it's your first time here, you better hit that subscribe. And I'll see y'all guys next time. Peace out, guys.